Welcome back. I am Shape in the Glass. Let's talk about Kasma. But before that, let's define what we want to know. First off, what is this exactly? Is this a standalone DLC? Secondly, when will this be available? And what can we expect from this? So far, we have partial answers for one of these. The rest is speculation. It's generally accepted, but not confirmed, that this will be a standalone DLC, similar to Death of the Outsider. Arcane has also expressed interest in restoring the cut survival mode in the base game. This was once available as a mod. We also don't know the time frame for this update. Given the date's significance in the game, we may hear something special on March 15th. Or we may have to wait for Bethesda's showcase at E3 on June 10th. I really hope this isn't the case. As for what we can expect, we do have some answers, but Kasma is very mysterious about them. Let's get started. My guess on the first image is that the Psi Cutter will be a new melee weapon. It looks like something straight out of Dishonored. It may even replace the wrench. What's unclear is whether it consumes Psi energy, or creates it. Or both. For instance, imagine you could make your strike more powerful, by investing Psi energy. Alternatively, you could siphon Psi energy by attacking for 0 damage. This may create a use for Psi energy, for people who do not use neuromods. The third thing this suggests is that now we can cut off the limbs. Similar to Dead Space. Another enemy this brings to mind is the Regenerator, from Resident Evil 4. The other interesting part of the image, is the format used for the volunteer IDs. They're different from the IDs used on Talos 1. The last portion is prefixed with the letter P. Does this stand for Pythias? Pythias is the mining facility on the moon. The second image appears to hint at an environmental hazard. It uses ionizing radiation to kill or damage typhon organisms. It's possible that this would be a hazard to you as well. It sounds similar to an arc pylon from the Dishonored series, but with high energy beams instead of arcing electricity. It seems to function using the same principle as radiologic cancer therapy. Radiotherapy uses high energy radiation to shrink and destroy tumors and cancer cells by damaging their DNA. When the DNA becomes damaged, this leads to cell death. We can assume that the same process would occur within any organism that is caught by the light. Logically, this device would affect everything within line of sight, but damage would also depend on light intensity, which obeys the inverse square law. The device appears to have two possible states: idle and active. This is also reminiscent of the arc pylons in Dishonored, which required a whale oil container for power. In this case, it looks like a control module is needed to activate the device. The empty space on the right suggests that there is a third state. Maybe this device can be upgraded, or deliberately broken, to change its functionality. Other possibilities include modifying the device's height, light intensity, or rotation speed. Let's move on to the third image. This graphic implies the existence of a fusion reactor, powered by resources mined from the moon. It's believed that the moon is a great source of the helium-3 isotope, also called Helion. Helion can be found in the dust covering the moon, also known as lunar regolith. However, large quantities of regolith are required to produce a significant amount of Helion. There may be higher concentrations of Helion in permanently shadowed regions of the moon. Because the grid of lights is always in darkness, this would be an ideal location for a regolith mining facility. The Helion mined from these facilities could be used for a proton-proton chain reaction, the reaction depicted here. It's also worth noting that lunar regolith is hazardous to humans. Even with protective gear, inhalation of lunar dust is a serious risk. It's coarse and rough and gets everywhere.
Hello.
Let's keep going. The latest image hints at new enemy types and abilities. But too much of the image is obscured to make any real conclusions. The only definite deduction we can make is that there will be a new type of phantom. The volunteer that encountered this phantom died from a possible concussion. The other volunteers died from lacerations, multiple contusions, and immolation. It's unclear what kind of test was administered. The strangest part is what appears to be a football diagram hidden in the image. Maybe we'll make more progress on this soon. There also isn't much I can say about this concept art. I can point out 3 interesting details. First, the decor is distinctly the same as Talos 1, so this is most likely a Transtar facility. Second, this was tagged with Throwback Thursday, suggesting this takes place in the past. We don't know how far back. Finally, the light. We know that mining facilities would be in perpetual darkness. So this is not Pythias. Now, let's talk about the messages we've received from Kasma. The first message seems to serve 2 purposes. First, it's a reference to the novel of the same name by Robert Heinlein, where a colony of former prisoners on the moon revolt against their rule from Earth. Secondly, it established a connection between Kasma and the moon. Other than that, there's not much else we can draw from this phrase yet. The second message is both the most interesting, and the one I know the least about. LGV is the file extension used for Looking Glass videos. If the port is ready, this suggests that it can be found. But I don't believe these numbers correspond to an actual IP. It may lead to something on the Prey website. I've briefly checked the source code but haven't found anything. I've also tried linking these numbers to elements on the periodic table, and phrases from the moon is a harsh mistress. There's nothing. These numbers are orbital parameters. They describe a trajectory in low lunar orbit. The Kasma Corp Twitter account provided this as their location. No one has observed any satellites orbiting the moon from Talos 1. There are 3 possible explanations for this. First, the object may be too small to recognize from a distance. Second, this could be the dark station found by the shuttle Advent, which was built to be undetectable. Or, this satellite may no longer exist by the time we visit Talos 1. It's also worth mentioning that this kind of orbit is highly difficult to achieve. In 2006, NASA published that there are 4 stable frozen orbits at various inclinations around the moon. Orbits that do not stay within these inclinations will eventually destabilize. What's interesting is that these are because of gravitational anomalies within the moon itself. They are called mass concentrations, or mascons. These are the results of impacts from billions of years ago. I'm going to treat the last few hints as a single message. This conversation implies the existence of a mole within Transtar that is leaking secrets to Kasma. Or maybe the other way around. This message is sent from the outside, warning the spy that they've been discovered. They seem to be focused on stealing data rather than physical prototypes. If they steal the connectums, they have the brain scans needed to create their own neuromods. The spy's family is also mentioned. Either this is a threat, or the spy may be one of Alex or Morgan Yu. M13 could be another company within the game, or another location. We may need to wait for more messages to find out what's going on. That's everything for now. I hope this didn't take too long. In summary, here's what I can predict. First, there are 3 possible locations. A Transtar facility on the lunar surface, a station in lunar orbit owned by Kasma, and the mining facility called Pythias. Second, we will see many familiar abilities return, but new enemies and weapons will be thrown into the mix. Finally, there's a chance that this will take place in the past, since we don't see evidence of anything exciting happening on the moon while we are on Talos 1. But I'd love to hear what you think. Let's hope we hear more from Kasma again soon.